Hey, good morning, everybody. Mike Courtney here, Mass Mutual Eastern PA Brokerage Director. I'm joined by Steve Parisi, President and CEO of IBC Global. Steve, how you doing? We're closing out September, heading into the final quarter of the year. Another great year for
the final
for
countdown, baby.
Together. Yeah, final countdown.
Yeah.
I wish I had the song queued up. Yeah. What's going on today?
Good day so far. Heavy week just in terms of activity. Had some fun this morning with some existing clients and in-force illustrations, just kind of designing it, tracking the original projection to the current performance just to match it up. I like that kind of stuff. But
you have a lot more fun with that than most people do.
Yeah, I'm a weirdo. I know. Yeah.
Well, no, I don't think I didn't mean it like that, although I might agree with you. It's important. And most people look at that as, maybe tedious or an inconvenience. And I think you really utilize that, your team and the way you guys are set up, utilize that well as like a, really important touch point with an existing client.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. And the reason why, like just in the years really learning the industry in and out, and where big players, corporations, and call it the 1%, have had problems with cash value life insurance, and where buyer's remorse comes into play, is they buy a policy based on an illustration. The policy doesn't perform and under-delivers, and they wonder why, what's going on. And we've talked about this before, so I'm not going to go into the details. So naturally, I want to track the performance year over year, making sure everything's set up properly from the beginning, of course, which it is, but track it year over year as I do for myself. Same thing for the clients. This way they have reassurance. Hey, the original projection showed X. We are currently on target, or the dividends come down a little bit, but here's the exact difference in cash value. It's very minor. And I see that it's minor when we've got a heavy PUA allocation, but overall all of them have performed.
Well, it helps to validate. I would think for you mentally, definitely for the client, but even for you, it helps validate what you're doing day in and day out when you can go back and look at all these policies and say, here's where we are, or, it helps you identify if there's issues and something that needs to be solved, or, it's, that's what you have to do. That's what theoretically, that's not theoretically, that's what the renewals are for.
They are, and you do have to keep your finger on the pulse of the company, the product, when changes occur. One of the policies I reviewed, they had planned to pay in $20,000 per year, and last year they had paid in $10,000, and we had 2 PUA riders attached to the product. One of them is not that flexible, so they're not going to be able to increase it back up to 20 through one option unless they go through underwriting. But we've got a different PUA rider attached. It's Mass Mutual's Lister that we can bump up for a total of $20,000, so they can do it, illustrate a PUA catch-up payment, and then I'm going back and tracking the original with $20K per year compared to one with $20K, $10K, $30K. Is the break even still at year 5? It is, minus a couple $100. But it's all on track is the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot. You rattled through that. That's a pretty complex case with a lot of moving parts. If you're not on top of that all the time, I could see how a case like that from an advisor's perspective could mentally get away from you. And it becomes something that you back burner, and then you're not really following what's going on.
It's something that when you've done it several times and you know what to do, it takes 5 minutes.
Right.
When you are inexperienced and things don't go according to plan, and you say, okay, I want to just, make this change or do what we originally did, and you're told you can't by a home office or insurance company, you start to panic. You put hours into trying to figure out the situation. You lose sleep over a stressful situation, trying to think how you're going to communicate this to the client because you told them one thing, now they can't do it. You feel like they're going to panic. We work up this big fearful situation in our mind. That's typically what happens. When it's really just a quick 5-minute fix if we know what to do. And like you said, it's complex, so you have to really understand it, which just comes with with experience and reading product manuals, which can be boring for some people, but really reading them, repeating them out loud, going into the software, seeing if it's actually possible, and then living it with enforced policies. And if you're new in the business, talk to people that have lived through it and made the adjustments for their clients. This way, you know that it's actually been done, not just hearing that it is possible.
Do you find that a lot of the advisors that you're working with, you're having to retrain because they either have picked up bad habits or what you would view as bad habits as financial advisors, or bad habits just as sales process from another industry?
Yes.
I mean, because your sales process and your client interface is very different than what you would typically find with any kind of financial advisor training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Meaning, I'm not a financial advisor, but I have extensively sat in on trainings and meetings and seminars, and I find it to be such a turnoff. You know,
I'm with you.
Some people like to be sold. I think those people are becoming smaller and smaller group.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of sales training that is still very pitchy and gimmicky, and
pitch. Yeah.
Let's use a little trickery here to get Mike to, not to make him do something that he doesn't want to do, but to make him realize that he does want to do this.
Yeah, trying to. So,
which I meant, may be good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's something that isn't good for me, but
yeah,
somebody's got to convince me to do it.
I'm with you.
That was rambling, but
gotcha. No. I followed. So, question was, do I find myself
are you having a retrain
advisors, a little bit the technical details, but more so the sales process, if they're used to selling people, giving a pitch, going through a story, a presentation, doing it differently?
Yeah.
If it's ingrained in them? Yes. So my thing is, I'm never going to say, hey, you have to completely change your thinking and the way you sell, to do it this way. It's the only way, because everybody's got a style that they will adapt to. And you should really focus on your fastball, right? Whatever your fastball is. We've talked about that before. But with the sales process, my thing is, like, I don't want this to sound wrong. We don't really sell people. When someone calls our office, or if I call them because they've been doing research on our company, on cash value life insurance, the first thing I ask them is, what can I get you information on? Or do you have any questions from your research thus far? And a problem that occurs in the industry, and I think this is in all industries when it comes to sales, is people will call, say, hey, I saw you hit our website. Yeah. And then just get motor mouth and start talking about cash value life insurance, pros and cons.
This is what we do. This is why it's great. This is what you should be doing. Yes.
So imagine you're calling someone who runs a company that does, maybe it's $1 million per year or 10 million per year, and you just start spitballing information at him or her when they've got a lot going on. Like, if it was if you've got a lot going on and you get that call from someone that says, hey, I saw you hit our website. Yeah. Well, let me tell you about this stuff. And I just talk for, call it 2 minutes straight. That's 120 seconds.
That's a long time.
Yeah. That just happens too much. And it's because people get nervous. Like I've been guilty of it several times.
Definitely.
And it happens, but
I felt like I was doing that during the height of the pandemic sometimes when I hadn't talked to anybody. Yeah. I hadn't seen anybody face to face in a while.
Yeah.
And I would get somebody on the phone and I'm like, wow.
Rusty. Yeah, that's all. Got to shake the rust off. We've all been there. So, like, my big thing is, because that happens to me a lot, and it's always been a weakness of mine, I will have notes sometimes if I'm on the phone, a little sticky note, or write on my tablet, pace, to remind myself to slow down, but then also ask questions. And something that I'll train on here for people that are subscribed to our coaching and training business and our internal agents is try and integrate questions every 30 seconds. And like, oh, how am I going to do that? The question can be after you explain a point. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? For example, like how do you design a policy for maximum cash value? And I want technical details. People ask us that a lot. Well, if you're going to pay $1 into a policy, Mike, did you know you can actually choose how much of that dollar goes toward insurance premium, which does not show up in cash value in the first year, and first buys you a death benefit. Eventually you see cash, but nothing right off the bat. But then with that same dollar, you can actually choose how much goes directly toward riders that build your cash value immediately. This money you can access begins compounding. This is really the key to copying what big banks and corporations do with these products. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? And that's it right there. With each point, whether it's policy loans, maybe it's how to incorporate it into estate planning, but make sure after you explain one point that you go right back into a question, because you can't assume they're just going to get it. Like everyone's different. The stuff can be complex unless you're in it every single day. And if they don't get it, go through it again, maybe in a different way, use some illustrations as an example. And you have to role play. You have to practice different illustrations, but incorporate a lot of questions, and whatever their questions are, like what their point of interest is, focus on that. Don't go and present something else.
Have you seen, you have to have agents that are working with you who are coming in with more, kind of traditional, old-fashioned sales tactics or client relationship building tactics that you're having to kind of break down. Do you have some success stories where somebody started out and was having a rocky start and then was able to turn it around by, you and I were talking before about, a lot of people's mentality today, ideally, anything that I can think of off the top of my head that I'm going to buy, if I could do it without a middleman, an advisor, a third party, whatever you want to call that person, if I could go onto my computer and go onto Amazon and dial into this is exactly what I want, and I feel comfortable doing this because I have all this information at my fingertips, that's what I would do. Yeah. So how do we provide that but still have that personal interaction and have that kind of shoulder to lean on to help make the decision without interfering with the sale?
I'm with you there. So yes, a lot of our agents have done well coming in from different backgrounds, whether they're in sales or not. They've come in and they do well here. They're well above industry averages without getting into any other numbers. But to that point, I'll call it the Amazon approach, where if you are interested in a cash value life insurance product and you're interested in the cash value, maybe the death benefit long-term as well, but you want a high cash value policy, you start doing research. There's so much information out there that contradicts itself as well from different groups, different agencies, individuals, whatever. So I always envision it, if I'm the consumer, if I could go on Amazon and Amazon could describe these products with different companies and I can customize it with a couple of clicks of a button right online and see the policy like I'll design in the illustration software, that'd be perfect. I would just do that so I don't have to deal with people and be sold on something that I don't want.
Yeah.
So can't quite do that yet. Amazon might figure it out down the road. But since we can't do that now, how I look at it is, all right, well, what we can do is provide a variety of different options, all the information in the world, and then always be a resource for the people that work with us. So when they come to us, they say, hey, here's really what I'm interested in. Here's how much I'd like to fund. I'm interested in using the policy for X, Y, and Z. What does that look like? We'll show a lot of options right off the bat. This way they can see the options. Then they start to refine their decision-making process. But we make it a point to show them everything. everything they want to see, and then more too. Hey, here's what you requested, but by the way, here's something I think you might like as well, because other people have that little thing there is very important. It prevents that, wait a minute, why don't you show me this option, that situation after the sale. But just showing them everything, going through that process very thoroughly, people appreciate it. We make it a point not to say, oh, it's too much. Like, you got to stop asking all these questions and seeing a million illustrations. Like, if someone's like that, we'll show it to them. If we're backed up, we'll say, hey, we're a bit backed up right now. It might take longer to get them to you, the numbers, the information you'd like to see, but we will get it to you. And then this way
It's
we're a
funny,
resource.
Steve, not to interrupt you, but it's funny that you say that, because when I first started working with you and when you and I were working on some cases together, the thought of, I remember we were working on a case and there was a bunch of illustration requests, and you said, I forget how this went down, but it was something like, we're going to get this stuff back to you in the next 3 or 4 days. And the thought in the back of my mind of, like, I felt like we had this person who was wanted to buy, wanted to move forward, and the thought of 3 or 4 days to send them an illustration, like real world financial services, typically you'd have an agent who would be like beating the crap out of somebody in their office to like put together some complicated plan, because you got to get it back to them within 12 to 24 hours. But just to be upfront right off the get-go, and you're not desperate, nothing's urgent, that it really isn't. I mean, we're trying to get things done as quickly as possible, but it's like, look, this stuff's complicated. We're going to put together a really nice package for you, but it's not a 15-line Excel spreadsheet. There's a lot that goes into this, and this is the timeline. And you're upfront about it, and you're confident about it, and it's like, and everything's very crystal clear. We're going to send you this. Here's when we're going to be able to send it to you. After we send it to you, please review, and then we'll circle back and we'll talk about any other questions after that. And it was a really refreshing way to proceed with the client. Because then I think the client also doesn't feel any pressure.
No.
This isn't a 5-alarm fire. We're going to take our time too, because we want to make sure we're answering all your questions. I want to make sure everything's right.
Yeah, 100%. And speed's, important as well. But if you're showing a lot of options, that's where it just takes time to put it together.
Yeah.
So what I like to do in a case like that is show 1 or 2 quick options, right? That I or my team can build out in 2 minutes. Here's a quick sample, which is going to look very similar to everything else that we'll show you. But the full package coming is everything I just did in 2 minutes, with a lot more simplified, laid out in a spreadsheet, adding talking points, answering commonly asked questions. It's the finished product. But here's something quick. This way you're not just sitting there waiting to think, what's it going to look like? This way, okay, I've got a good sense. Here's the preview, right? So I can go and look at a car online. I got a sense of what it looks like, how fast it goes from 0 to 60. But until I actually make the trip to the dealership and test drive that bad boy, now I'm feeling it. So kind of like that.
Also, I think that if you're, this is tough for an independent agent, but I mean, you did this as you built this business as an independent agent. But I think if you're I'm thinking of guys in my office, if you're a Mass Mutual career agent, to kind of put these systems together is difficult. But I think it is really important to have that systematized process so that things don't feel rushed. Everything feels like, here's how we do things step by step. And I think that's comforting for people on the other end.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier for you to move quickly through a lot of information if a lot of it is template kind of format.
Correct.
The numbers are changing, the names are changing, the design's changing, but when you send an email to a client, here's the format. We're sending these things. We're sending these couple of video links to go along with it.
Yep.
And it's easily reproducible on the fly by your agents. I think that's really important for kind of tone and pace of the conversations and the meetings.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes it easier, especially for a newer agent, because this stuff's it takes a while to learn, even if you're a fast learner. So if you've got a process that you can lean on heavily to help you produce business that's going to help you succeed, and your clients will be happy too, because you have a fast turnaround time. You're not stumbling over trying to explain an illustration like it's all done for you. It does make life much, much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would urge anybody out there, financial advisors or interested parties in whole life and cash value life insurance to reach out to Steve and his team. They are a fantastic resource. If you want to talk about anything Mass Mutual related, of course, self-promotion, I'm a fantastic resource as far as that's concerned. And we've got a lot of exciting things going on at Mass Mutual. A lot of topsy-turvy things, in my opinion, going on at Mass Mutual, but I always, we're finding some light with some of these changes, and I think we're going to have a great fourth quarter and a real strong 2022. And Steve, I know you guys will, if people are looking for help with, how to service their clients, how to develop more sales, some of these systems that Steve has in place. IBC has this training platform now. It is really valuable, whether you're focused on cash value accumulation or your business looks like something else. A lot of it is interchangeable and applicable to, a variety of different sales cycles. So, Steve, we'll keep talking about this as the weeks go on, and let's get out there and finish the week strong.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Mike.
All right, thanks.
All right, enjoy. Talk to you soon.